and welcome back to another episode of Pleasure Principles. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving into the complex and deeply transformative world of relationships. Yes, I thought that this way if I start like deeply transformative. Yes, so because we all have those impossible relationships, the ones that we think are too broken, too strained, or kind of too far gone to be repaired. But here the question: what if I told you that there's a way to restore them, to build new bridges where old ones have burned? Have you thought about this, dear listeners? Do let me know in the comment section on the social media or any platforms. Would love to hear from you. And my guest today has spent over 25 years helping people to do that. Greg Stephens. So welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you so much, Avik. Glad to be here. Thanks. I'm an honor to be a guest on your show. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. So Greg, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. And so dear listeners, Greg is a communication consultant, executive coach, professional speaker, and corporate trainer. So he's worked with Fortune 500 companies, national organizations, and the individuals alike, guiding them in transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. So he recently released his book, Build New Bridges: The Art of Restoring Impossible Relationships. And I can't wait to dive deep into the insights he's gained from his incredible journey. So, welcome to the show again.
Thanks, Avik. I appreciate it.
Lovely, lovely. So Greg, like the power of restoration is definitely, it's really powerful. Your story about reconnecting with your father is so raw and powerful. I mean, eh, eh, it took incredible courage to have that conversation. What was the biggest internal shift you had to make in order to kind of approach it differently than you might have it in the past?
Yeah, that's one of the things. It does take an internal shift. And what I find is one of the things people say, oh, we need to go have a conversation with this person, get this cleaned up, get this handled. But no one's really taught us how to do it. We typically learn from our parents or people in our lives how to communicate, but no one's really ever typically taught us, sat down and taught us the skills. And then
Yeah,
we typically haven't gone out and practiced those skills. We might learn it in a class or something, but we don't go apply it. And it's kind of like its own language. If you don't practice it, you're not going to do very well with it. And
exactly.
that's what I did as I started going up in Avik, one in my book, I went and cleaned up all my past relationships, a list of 36 different people. And my father was the last one because he was gonna be the hardest. And
Yeah.
I teach people in business and personal how to do these, how to have these conversations, but I find our personal ones are typically much harder than the ones at business. At business, we see a return on our investment or our time really quickly, and so we'll go practice there. But we don't do it as home nearly as much. And you're right, it did take courage to do it, but there's
Mm.
something about understanding the skills of how to do it that help you gain courage, gain confidence to be able to do it. Because if you're not don't know how to do something, you're not really motivated to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people get stuck in the fear of rejection when they are trying to heal a relationship. So, uh, how do you guide someone through that emotional barrier?
Yeah. Well, I think I put a program together
Mm,
where we actually work on first thing is
mm,
getting on the right topic with all of these because we typically want to talk about the issue, but it's a much deeper thing when it's emotional. We need to
mm,
be talking about the relationship. But when I say relationship is how we work together.
mm,
Most people, if they say, "Hey, let's talk about the relationship," they're gonna run.
mm,
But if I talk about how do we work together going forward in a
mm,
way that's better? It's a
mm,
foundation of what we need to do, but then you have to be able to manage your emotions. Most of us come into these conversations and we want the other person to change.
Yeah.
And it's a mistake because you can't change anyone. You can't get them to
Mhm.
react like you want them to. They're a human being with free choice, free will. But what I found is when I change how I do things, I can
Mm.
influence how other people engage with me. So
True.
the only thing I can really change is myself. Once I do, I have the ability to influence someone else. And that's kind of the pathway I teach people first how to manage themselves, how to
Mm.
manage their emotions, how to see what's really going on. And that's a huge insight for most people because
Mm.
most of us live in this illusionary world in our brain.
Yeah.
We think other people make us mad or other people upset us. We
Mm.
upset ourselves based on our expectations of
Mm.
how we think someone should act or react. And we've
Correct.
never had a clear agreement at the beginning of our relationships. I mean, most people battle if they have a significant other spouse, they battle on finances or things like that. Do they have agreement about how finances will be handled?
Mm.
They have assumptions they've made, and that creates a lot of space for upsets to happen.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
Mm.
to answer your question, it's get on the right topic and manage your emotions first. Then, if you were to get my book, I walk you through
Mm.
how to structure your message because most people begin by blaming or attacking someone, especially in a we see that a impossible relationship, we live in that past experience. So we continue to blame that person for that. And that's why it becomes impossible because
Mm.
we can't see it. We can't see how we're responsible for that impossibility to live and stay there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you have worked with couples, corporate leaders, the retirees, um, I mean, three very different groups, but at the core, they all deal with the relationship challenges. So, what are some of the universal truths you have discovered about what makes relationships thrive or maybe break down? So,
Well,
say,
it's personal self-interest that we think the world
mm,
should look the way we want it to.
yeah.
And when I feel that way and you feel that way and we interact,
Mm.
there's going to be conflict. But I also believe that that conflict is healthy. It shows us where boundaries are.
Mm.
It has us, if we know how to do, we can discuss them. We can actually coordinate our efforts and get both of our personal needs met. But that's just it. When we don't understand how to engage with that conflict in a
Mm.
healthy, effective way, instead of building up, we tear down.
Yeah.
And that's just it. When we start to tear something down, it's amazing what human beings can build when they're aligned, when we're working toward the same goals, when we're trying to understand that, hey, I've got needs, Avik's got needs, we got to work within that. It's amazing what we can do together. But the moment we pit ourselves against each other, it is amazing what we can tear down. And that's just it. The question you need to ask yourself is, am I building things in this relationship or am I tearing them down? Here's the other thing, Avika, I found most of the time when there's a problem, we focus on the problem and we forget about the person.
Mm.
Because if I'm working on a project with you, I'm just looking at the problem and you
Mm.
become a problem with that. But what if I see you as a person and I say, we can do more together than we can fighting each other? All of a sudden, I have an ability to make a shift, but that's just it. We have to see both people and problems separately.
Mm.
What happens
True.
when the person becomes your problem?
Exactly. That is the main issue.
Yeah, and there's skill sets to break that down because what I would
Yeah.
suggest if we were to start working on something together,
Mm.
you don't want me to become a problem for you, and I don't want you to become a
Mm.
problem for me. So, can we set boundaries in that? Can we talk about how we'll talk about our differences? of opinion about how something should be delivered or timelines, things like that. But it's amazing, again, what we can do when we coordinate our action together and what we can tear down when we don't.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
And uh, like uh, that moment, I mean, when your father told you that he didn't like the man you had become, that I mean, that could have broken you or led to a kind of defensive. So instead, you responded in a way that transformed the conversation. I mean, I really love that. I mean, how can people practice
Yeah.
staying emotionally present instead of kind of reacting or uh, instead of being reactive from a place of pain? I mean, how do you, what do you say?
Well, I'm going to say that is a human superpower we all possess
Mm,
if you practice it.
true.
And it's being able to absorb tough messages.
Mm,
And for me in that moment,
mm,
honest, Avik, if you haven't read the book, the first chapter is about me and my father. Like Avik was
mhm,
talking about, my dad told me that he didn't want to have anything to do with me at one point. And in that moment, everything in me wanted to show him how wrong he was.
mhm,
That's what I felt inside. But I've learned when I get emotional to ask myself questions.
mhm,
Questions turn the brain back on. So if I can pause a second, I feel myself about to react. Have you ever spoken up and what you said next actually cost you more than you wanted it to? So I've learned what we say is your first response is the worst response. So I don't want to jump out there right away. I want to
okay.
ask a question. And the first question I ask is, what is it I want in this moment? What
Mm,
do I really want for myself, for the other person I'm talking to, for
mm,
our relationship, for the family? What is it I really want? I've got to get back to my best motives. It's
mm,
interesting because that is the engine that runs the whole engagement with the other person. Your motives,
mm,
if you can keep your motives in a positive place,
true.
all of a sudden you can engage very differently. So if my motive is to listen to you, no matter how hard it is to hear you,
Mm,
I may be able to listen and disseminate. Remember this, folks, listening does not mean you agree with the person.
yeah,
But if
exactly.
I listen, all of a sudden they have an avenue to share what they're giving me the gold in the conversation.
Mm,
They're giving me their perspective. Once I understand their perspective, then I can influence them. I can't influence until I truly understand it. But what we typically do, we get caught in reaction. I want to
mm,
say, with my father, deep down, I wanted to say, you're wrong. You're wrong
mm,
about this. But I knew that would just get in the way. If I ask questions, then I can get curious.
mm,
And that's the distinction here. Are you curious in a conversation or are you trying to be right?
mm, true.
Because most of us in a conversation where there's conflict, where there's emotions running,
Mm,
we want to be right. And it actually blinds us to everything that's going on in the conversation. And there are skill sets you can do, like ask yourself questions, take a deep breath, change your physical space, trying to open up to try to really listen to someone. And think about this, when someone really listens to you, Avik, don't you
mm,
feel like almost there's a connection there?
exactly.
Yeah. And so when I can listen, even if someone's attacking me, I start to create a connection that wouldn't be there. Again, I might not I might disagree with everything they've said,
Yeah.
but I don't want to jump into that right now. I want to find out why they think that. I want
Mm,
to find out what data they have behind that. How long has this been going on?
mm,
What has it done for them? How has it shut them down around me? When I start to find those things out, guess what I'm doing? I'm actually turning their brain back on too, because I'm using questions to turn their brain back on.
exactly.
So it's an interaction, but it's done through the ears, and the only thing with your mouth on that is asking
Mm.
questions.
Exactly, very true.
Rather than trying to tell someone why they're wrong or explain why I did what I did, just go, "Wow, that's
Yeah.
not good. Help me understand how you came out to that opinion. How
Mm.
long has this been going on? Uh,
Mm.
have you been avoiding me because of this?
Mm.
Have you?" And I start to open up, something happens in that connection as you do it.
Mm. Exactly, very true. So, also like, I mean, whether it is personal relationship or the business, trust is everything, which I believe. Though, when trust is broken, what are the key steps to rebuilding it?
Yeah. I think first, you can't blame.
Yeah.
When trust is broken, I can't blame. I
Hmm.
have to have an inquiry. And so it's part of laying out a good intent up front. You know what, Avik, based on these things, the last I've heard you maybe talking to others about me saying these things, that's what's been reported to me. When I see that, I feel like I can't trust you. And I
Yeah.
don't want that. Help me understand your perspective.
Mm.
Then I'm in a then I'm starting to get in a conversation about what have I been doing to do this? So understanding there's a Anthony DeMello, I love what he said. He's a uh, he lived in India and he uh uh he said clarity of perception gives you a greater accuracy of response.
Wow.
So if I understand where you're really
Mm.
coming from, then I can respond more directly. So if I'm going to talk about trust breaking down, I need to understand how you saw trust breaking down, or I even share how it's broken down for me.
True.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then it's a back and forth. And I would also say, you didn't break my trust. These
Mm.
things happened. I decided not to trust at that point. I own if I trust someone. I'm not gonna blame someone else. The moment I blame someone else, I give them all my personal power,
Yeah.
and it's not theirs to have. My personal power is for me to have. It's for
Mm.
me to make decisions. It's for me not to be a victim around what's going on, but the moment I stop being a victim and stop blaming, then I can do something about it. Victims can't do anything. You're a
Mm.
victim.
Exactly.
Once I make that mind shift, you talked about making that shift. Once you stop being a victim and be responsible, there's a quote I share almost everyone. It's on my signature on my email. It's and here's the quote: "Everything in my life I create, promote, or
Mm.
allow. I'm totally responsible for my life. What results do I have? That's on me.
Mm.
Did I
Exactly.
allow something? Did I trust someone I shouldn't have? Did I
Mm.
trust someone just because I had wishful thinking?
Mhm.
Did I have a conversation about how we'll move forward, or did I just make assumptions?"
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a whole different way of living.
True. Very true. Yeah. I mean, it's very true. Like whatever I have done, it's on me, nothing on someone else. So true. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I've done it. I'm responsible. Then I can do
Mm.
something about it. If I put it in your hands, if it's
Mm.
your fault, then I'm waiting for you to do something about it,
Mm.
and that may never come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lovely. Great. I mean, Greg, I mean, I really, really enjoyed the conversation. It's really an incredible and insightful conversation, I have to say. I know like time is constrained, but I really love to discuss more and more. But I have to say here that your work actually reminds us that even the most difficult relationships have the, I mean, potential to heal if kind of we are willing to do the inner work and show off differently in a different way.
Yeah.
And so before we go, I mean, for anyone who is listening or maybe listening later, who is struggling with a seemingly impossible relationship, what's the one piece of advice you'd leave them with today?
Yeah. I tell this is the simplest thing,
Mhm.
and it's so powerful. Whenever you get into an emotional
Mhm.
conflict or, conversation with someone, it's not going the way you want it to.
Yeah.
Just make this simple statement.
Mm.
"Stop. This is not what I want to do. My intent in talking about this is this," and share your good motive. "My
Mm.
intent in talking with you about this, Avik, was to solve this problem and make our relationship stronger. I can see I haven't done that. Can we reset and go back to that?"
Mm.
Just reset with your best intent. It's one skill that you can use over and over and over. I've had people do this more than 20 times in one conversation, but it gets it back on track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what people doubt is your motive.
Mhm.
When they feel attacked, they think
Mhm.
that you don't have their best in mind, you don't have
Yeah.
share their goals, or you don't respect them somehow. I've gotta get that idea back, and I start with my best intent, my best.
True. Perfect. That's lovely. Great. Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing your wisdom and your personal journey with us. And dear listeners, if you want to dive deeper into the art of restoring relationship, be sure to check out Greg's book, Build New Bridges: The Art of Restoring Impossible Relationships. It's a game changer. And also, last quick thing, like Greg, like where people can find your book.
Yeah, they can find it on Amazon, just or anywhere books are sold. It's on Kindle, it's on, paperback, hardback. Also, we'll be releasing the audio version at the end of March, at the end of this month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, really amazing. And as always, if this episode has resonated with all of you, dear listeners, share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review. And your relationships, whether personal or professional, deserve the care and the attention to flourish. So, with this hope, until next time, keep exploring the pleasure of meaningful connections. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Avi.